name is Kenzie Bach. I'm the Boston City Councilor for District 8 and also the chair of the Council's Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology. This hearing is being recorded. It's being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Today's hearing is on Docket 0211, Message and Order for your approval, an order appropriating from the Edward Ingersoll Browne Fund the sum of $1,475,000 for projects described in the attached order. The Edward Ingersoll Browne Fund Commissioners met on December 7th, 2022, and voted to approve these projects and to establish a dedicated repairs and restoration fund for the Browne Fund projects. Written comments on this docket may be sent to the committee email at ccc.csit@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. If you wish to sign up for public testimony here in the chamber, please sign in over there in the corner near the door. There should be a sheet. And if you're looking to testify virtually, please email Shane Pack at shane.pac@boston.gov. That's shane.pack@boston.gov for the link, and we'll add your name to the list. And I want to thank everybody who sent us some written testimony already. We've been receiving those over the last few days. I'm joined here by my colleagues. Councillor Michael Flaherty at large is the council's representative on the Browne Fund. President Flynn of District 2 and Councillor Aaron Murphy at large. Thank you all for joining. And we're going to be hearing today from Maureen Garceau, the First Assistant Collector Treasurer from the city's Treasury Department, and Margaret Dyson, the Trust Manager from the Treasury Department. So I will just, I'll be going in a moment to you for presentation, but I just want to check if any of my colleagues have any opening statement that they want to offer. So, and in particular, I want to give Councillor Flaherty, since he is, as I said, the council representative on the Browne Fund, the chance for any opening statement he might want. So, Councillor Flaherty.
Just briefly, we had, and it's great to see both Maureen and Margaret, we had an exhaustive hearing on December the 7th with a great list of questions, and both Maureen and Margaret did a phenomenal job in terms of outlining and being very judicious about the various projects that were requesting funds. So all in all, it was a very thoughtful and informative, from my perspective, serving as the council's representative on the Browne Fund, but knowing that the process was as exhaustive and thorough is great comfort to me and should be great comfort to this body that all of these projects that were selected and the due diligence that went into in the process that we undertook was very thorough and very fair. So with that, I appreciate your efforts, Madam Chair, and look forward to my colleagues' questions if they have any. And again, thank you to both Maureen and Margaret for their work on behalf of the fund in the city.
Thank you so much, Councillor Flaherty. President Flynn, any brief opening comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, thank you for your work on this committee. I want to say thank you to Councillor Flaherty as well, and also to Maureen and Margaret for their professional work in looking and reviewing the proposals and being very professional in the way they go about doing their business as city employees. So just want to say thank you to the wonderful team that works on these issues, but also there's a lot of support behind the scenes, and they do a tremendous job. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Flynn. Councillor Murphy?
Just echo what my colleagues have said. Thank you for being here, and also the work that Councillor Flaherty mentioned was happening for months before, but we did have a hearing in December. So happy to be here to just move this forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. And now, without further ado, I'll go to our panel from the Treasury Department.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bach and President Flynn and other council members. Appreciate you having us here today. As the treasurer of the city, I oversee the more than 350 trusts, which are managed by Margaret Dyson. So other than being here for support, Margaret really is the person who's going to be able to answer any questions you may have. So I will hand it over to Margaret.
Great, Margaret.
Thank you, councilors, for the opportunity to be here today. You do have the order in front of you. It's for $1,475,000. I am happy to go through and do a brief description of each project if that's helpful. The one item that I would like to bring to your attention, because it is new for the Browne Fund, is this year we are establishing a dedicated repair and restoration fund. The Browne Fund was established both by Mr. Browne's will and by action of the City Council in 1975. Projects that were built in the early years are needing a little restoration and repair. One of the terrific innovations of the Browne Fund was to establish a maintenance agreement with all of our grantees. However, some of the grantees that we worked with in the late 70s, early 80s, and even into the 90s are not as active as they once were. And so we want to establish an ongoing practice of dedicating funds to maintenance as well as to capital construction.
Great, fantastic. I think that probably the best thing to do is councilors have, and can I just confirm, colleagues have the list of projects in front of them. So I think what I'll do is I'll go to colleague questions and sort of let that govern, and then when I'll hold my questions for the end, and if it feels like there are some things we haven't attended to, I might back clean up on that front. So, but I do want to give Councillor Flaherty, although I know he's familiar with all these projects at this point, the opportunity to ask questions first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And no questions on the list, only because I've had a front row seat for that. But also wanted just to point out Margaret's efforts really in the last one to establish a dedicated repair and restoration fund. That was really sort of, from my perspective, at that meeting, it's always great to support sort of great causes, and particularly a lot of these friends groups that do great work in the community, and to be able to be there and to participate and to support and vote for allocating funds that was appropriate. But Margaret, obviously, I think was may have been the visionary behind establishing a dedicated repair and restoration fund to provide periodic support for previously funded Browne Fund projects that require investment beyond the regular maintenance required of grant receipts. So, and I think that was overwhelmingly supported by the group once Margaret had made that presentation to take a look at previous investments in those funds to make sure that the past investments sort of just don't fall into disrepair, if you will. So to be able to set aside a dedicated repair and restoration fund, I think is critical, and hopefully you as chair and obviously our colleagues will feel the same way. That for me, that being at that meeting, that was sort of one of the bigger takeaways that I just thought was ingenious, and the fact that we hadn't done it to date, and it's something that we, as chair of the CPA on behalf of the City Council, that's something I think that I would be bringing back to the CPA, as to, hey, recognizing that we've made a significant investment in a number of things over the last couple of years through the Community Preservation Act, and we want to make sure that we maintain and keep those projects up to a certain level of repair, so that we're not sort of revisiting a major capital commitment down the road, as opposed to sort of taking a page out of Margaret's and the Browne Fund's idea to have sort of this pool of dedicated repair and restoration funds to be able to go back to that commitment, to go back to that investment in the event that something falls into disrepair or is vandalized, etc. So that's all I just want to add, is that that last item for me is most critical moving forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor Flaherty. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, thank you to the team that's in front of us presenting this information to us. And I'm very familiar with all of the groups that are receiving funding, and I think this is money well spent, and I certainly support it. And one thing I wanted to highlight, whether it's in my district or not, these funds are also being used to update parks or infrastructure, but they're also telling a story about Boston. And I say that because there's a group I worked with, it's called the Friends of Cripe Park on Columbus Avenue in the South End. It's in my district, and then just kind of one block away, it goes into the next district. But Rohan Kreit, as you know, was an African-American artist, mostly in Roxbury and in the South End area, and he painted so many wonderful paintings that are in these wonderful museums throughout Boston, but also throughout the country. I had the opportunity to meet his wife, and she has been very engaged and very active, and she was very thankful to the city for working closely with the Friends Group to refurbish this park and make it a great park. But you said, isn't this a wonderful opportunity where we're recognizing my husband, who's a great African artist, but maybe there's also, we could also use this as an opportunity to educate young people of color, especially in the Boston Public Schools, about the importance of arts and culture and music, and exposing them to the arts and letting them have a flavor, a feel of some of these fields that they haven't been traditionally part of. So when his wife told me that, I really felt good about the work we're doing as city employees about fixing our parks, but also educating young people about how important these parks are, and that there's a name behind these parks, and those names could be an example for someone to study music, to study arts, to study culture, maybe to get a master's degree, and to become a teacher and talk about and teach others about these lessons about culture and historians that we have in Boston. So just want to stop there, Madam Chair, and want to say thank you to this wonderful team that is doing excellent work in our city, and we're proud of this fund, but also the work they do across all the neighborhoods of Boston. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, President Flynn. Councilor Murphy?
Sure, thank you. As an at-large counselor, I was excited to see the list, right? Such worthy causes all across the city, sprinkled across different neighborhoods, and, receiving these funds is going to make such a difference. It's also telling, a story of our past and keeping history alive, but some of them are also new, right? Like the Boys and Girls Club in Dorchester, and making sure that, the Field House on Mount Vernon Street has what they need to be a publicly accessible park. So it's keeping, our past, but also investing in our future moving forward. So just excited for this, and thank you for all your work.
Great, thank you so much, Councilor Murphy. I wanted to just ask a couple of questions to, as I said, round out. But I would just say to start, and to Councilor Flaherty's point, when I started working at the Boston Housing Authority, I learned about the Browne Fund because there are a number of installations throughout the BHA properties that came from the Browne Fund, and they add a lot of kind of joy and whimsy to a lot of sites in the Boston housing portfolio. And I also remember learning at the time that the Browne Fund was unusual in that it had this sort of like formal requirement for someone to come and check on all the projects every year to sort of see what their condition was. And I remember thinking at the time, that's great, because so often folks just kind of give money and then, shrug their shoulders and walk away subsequently. And it seems to me like that, that is great, and that is a great thing for the fund to be doing, checking in. But obviously, if what you find is that the piece that the fund invested in is sort of not up to standard, and you have a situation where over time a maintenance agreement has kind of fallen by the wayside, or as you were noting, that the sort of chief actors maybe are not a going concern anymore or something, or just so maybe those requirements were a little bit like neglected in the sands of time, whatever. I think it's great for the fund to kind of be able to have a strategy for picking back up, because there are so many of these things where just a little bit of maintenance investment would go a long way, or like repair investment. So really excited to see you guys putting money into that, especially as so many of the funds things kind of move into their, they've been around maybe 30, 40 years, et cetera. So yeah, excited to see that, and just want to voice my support for kind of establishing that repair fund. I wondered if you could talk us through a little bit, how are you guys thinking about sort of administering it now that like you're establishing it? So is the idea that that the fund staff would make recommendations of like, these are places where we sort of, it looks like maybe we might want to have a hand in repairing, or just how are you thinking about the apparatus there?
Sure, we continue to do the annual inspections, which are taking longer and longer as we fund more and more projects. But we do the annual inspections. That will, of course, be the baseline for us. We are also using this as an opportunity to encourage strong basic maintenance in our correspondence with former grantees. We worked with the commissioners to establish this recommendation for a fund. One of the things that they had in place is if it's over $50,000, we'll go back to the commissioners to get their support for it. I think one of the things that will become challenging as various funded projects reach the end of their useful life is we cannot both rebuild everything that's been built and fund new projects.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an ongoing balancing act. But for repairs under $50,000, we would work with our facilities manager and with the property owner, whether that's a city department or agency or a nonprofit. We do have some projects that are on the property of nonprofits that open their space to the public, and identify the best course of action for a repair. Our goal is to participate at approximately the same level that Brown participated originally. So if it was $1 million project that we put $100,000 into, and it needs a $100,000 repair, we would want to participate at about a $10,000 level. However, there are going to be some things that we just have to take on, and that's often an instance where there was vandalism or an accident, and we need to take quick action to ensure the stability. We have the capacity to do that with our facilities manager. I would be happy to do a report annually as we come back for our appropriation of what funds have been spent on, if that's helpful to the council.
Thanks so much. I think I would probably defer to the commissioners on that. I certainly, as a trustee of another one of your trusts, I think like if I were in the position of having authorized a maintenance fund, I would then want to have that report. But I think like we can defer to them on that front. I just think it's a great new thing to be doing, but obviously it's always good to be kind of like transparent and iterative on these things as you figure out what that balance is. I just wanted to highlight I guess actually one more question, and then I thought I'd do a little bit of highlighting for folks who are watching this hearing and wondering what are all these projects, just walk through a little bit what they are. But can you talk about how something gets to be considered for the Browne Fund?
Sure. It's an open application process. Our next round will open on the 15th of February, with applications due on the 15th of March. The website is excellent. Just Google Edward Ingersoll Browne Fund. That should be what comes up. We do have an online application that is surprisingly a relatively recent innovation. The system set up by the City Council in their ordinance in 1975 has a 3-level system, which is the staff determines if it's actually eligible, if it's consistent with Mr. Brown's goal of ornamenting the city's streets, ways, squares, and parks. Then the first round is with a Browne Fund committee, which has representatives from the Art Commission, the Boston Parks Department, and the Boston Public Works Department, as well as the Boston Society of Landscape Architects. They do an initial vetting, come up with any questions that they might have, work directly with the applicants if that's needed. Questions can go back to the applicants and come back, usually through staff. They make recommendation to the Browne Fund commissioners. The commissioners have the final authority for what gets recommended to the City Council. So you have that staff level review, the committee review, the commissioner's review, and then, of course, the appropriation by council.
Great. Awesome. And I saw that in general, you guys are sort of, you're funding things in kind of increments of $25,000. Like everything I think on this list is either a 20, a 50, a 75, or a 125.
In most cases, our design grants are under about $60,000. We can fund design, which again is somewhat different from the Community Preservation Act program, which cannot fund design independent of construction. We work closely with the CPA staff and envision a time in the future where perhaps Browne Fund funded projects could then go to CPA for construction dollars, CPA having many more dollars than the Browne Fund does. But we try to work cooperatively with our partners both inside and outside of city government on that. Construction projects, we rarely fund over about 150 or 160,000. We generally try to scale the grants either to the size of the project. Browne rarely is in a position where it can fully fund a project. Mostly we are one part of a diverse funding system. We also are working very closely to try to identify the specific elements that are funded by Browne and to ensure that the property owner as well as the applicant are on board with what is being proposed.
Great. Yeah, that all makes sense. And obviously, if you're going to be checking up on things, you have to know what elements you're checking up on, as it were, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how do you? I presume that the amount that's available each year is dependent on kind of like a certain interest ratio off the trust.
Yes.
Can you just explain that? So this year we're talking about an appropriation of $1.475 million. So
This year is somewhat unusual because we are awarding both the funds from 2021 and the funds from 2022. There was not an award made last year for the 2021 funds. So what we do is December 31st, there's an evaluation of the fund, and 5% of that is made available for distribution. And so this is really 2 years.
2 years worth. Okay. Yeah, it seemed high to me. That's great to understand.
Yep.
Okay. And then, and then I guess just I wanted to quickly flag. So I'll certainly say that, in my district, very excited about the design services for the John Boyle O'Reilly Monument. He's sort of one of those guys, I think people don't know who he is now, but he was like a pretty major kind of bridge figure between Irish Boston and Protestant Boston at the time, and really did a lot to kind of try to build collective community, and has quite a colorful history. And it's a great statue, and we're excited for kind of the whole work around the statue and that plaza there. And so I wanted to shout out to Marie Fukuda, one of my constituents, who I think has been really diligently pursuing this. And so it's great to see that effort recognized with these design funds. So I just wanted to make that District 8 shout out. And then the other District 8 shout out is the Friends of the Public Garden for the lighting of the William Lloyd Garrison Memorial statue. We, as you know, have been lighting up sort of statue after statue on the Commonwealth Mall, and it makes such a difference, like, just in terms of the ability of people to enjoy this public art in the darker hours in a place where a ton of people are walking, strolling in the evening after the sun goes down. It makes the area feel safer, but it's also just like much more beautiful. And I've been enjoying kind of as block after block of the Commonwealth Mall gets that kind of additional and sort of artistically sensitive light, right? Light that actually considers the contours of the statue and shows it off to best advantage. And obviously William Lloyd Garrison, as an abolitionist, is one of the figures who we're very proud to be associated with in various ways in Boston. So just wanted to express my excitement about those two. And then the third one that I really wanted to uplift, and this is me interloping into Councillor Flynn's district, but I grew up in Bay Village, and so I've grown up with the story of the Coconut Grove fire, which is obviously one of the most famous disasters in the history of Boston, and of course fire safety nationally, and just a horrible loss of life, still recalled by a lot of families, and then also resulted in a ton of changes in fire safety codes, actually like innovations in hospital work, just like a ton of kind of responses, came out of that horrible thing in ways that changed history. And so really, really excited that after so much work by this committee of folks on the Coconut Grove Memorial, that's going to come to fruition, and that it will be able to be in a city park, and Statler Park, which is right there, a stone's throw from the actual site where we all gathered this November. And so I just wanted to say I was really glad to see that particularly make this list, and thank all the people who've been working on that, and a number of them wrote in to me. I just wanted to read a couple of, I've gotten quite a lot of outreach, including from our fire union and the National Fire Protection Association, and lots of folks associated with firefighting. But I had a couple that came in from people with particular personal connections. So one of them said, my father, Martin Sheridan, was a survivor of the Coconut Grove fire tragedy. His first wife, Constance Mislin Sheridan, died in the fire. My father survived because he was pulled out of the fire by a sailor on leave in Boston that weekend. The one wish my father had was that the people of Boston never forget the tragic fire that killed and injured so many on November 28th, 1942. Another person, I'm the son of John Rizzo, a Coconut Grove survivor who passed a few years ago, who was very much involved in the memorial, and it was his fondest wish to honor the deceased and survivors of that horrible day. My father on that day saved quite a few people. They changed so many fire regulations and medical breakthroughs that are still practiced today. The memorial would mean so much. And then just another two, somebody said, the memorial is very important to me and my family. My mother, Joyce Spector Meckelberg, is one of the last two living survivors of the fire. She was 18 years old that night. The fire began over her head. Her fiance, Justin Morgan, sent my mom to get her coat and stayed to put out what he thought was a small fire. Justin died that night along with 489 others. I'm very grateful that the city of Boston is finally ready to memorialize all the victims, families, and survivors of this horrific event. And then another wrote in and said, a woman who would have been my aunt, Mary McCormick, my father's sister, died in that fire. She was out dancing on a Saturday night with her best friend, Ruthie Knox. Ruthie also perished in that fire. Mary and Ruthie were in their early 20s. I never met Mary. She died in 1942, and I was born in 1948. I never got to know and love my aunt. It would be very special for me to finally see a memorial dedicated to Mary, Ruthie, and all the other victims. I and the other relatives of the victims of the Coconut Grove fire would then have a place to go to grieve and ponder what might have been. Thank you for your consideration of this request. So I just wanted to note that, because the specific items included in the funds request include contemplation benches for the memorial, and so I just wanted to lift up the voices of some of the people who have been writing into us, saying how much it would mean to them to be able to come to this place and sit on those benches. So I think there's a strong sense that it is long past time for us to have such a memorial in Boston, and it feels to me like something that the Browne Fund should be very proud to be a part of, and definitely I'm excited to recommend passage of those dollars. So those were just the specific projects I wanted to shout out. I'll just give people a quick run through so folks know, besides those three that I mentioned, there's lighting, design for lighting at Chin Park and Chinatown, a great kind of like linear park that's sort of connects Chinatown to the Greenway. There's a Chinatown workers statue project, which is great. There's so much labor history in Chinatown, and it's great to be planning something to highlight that. There's artist fees and installation costs for the Frederick Douglass Memorial in Roxbury. Again, somebody with a lot of ties to Boston who it's exciting to be memorializing. Councillor Flynn already drew attention to Cripe Park. There's improving public access to the green space at First Church, Roxbury. There is artistic letters and artistic paving at the corner park in green space in Codman Square. There is improving publicly accessible community gardens in Charlestown. There is, as mentioned, money for the welcoming public park entrance for the Dorchester Field House, something that I know is close to the heart of Councilor Baker and many of the councilors. So exciting to see that. There is improvements to the Memorial Hall fence in Charlestown, and then of course the repair fund. So just wanted to make sure to articulate all of those things, and just thank you guys for, these. Each one of these has a lot of passionate Bostonians behind them and are going to be like well appreciated places, and and they will join a big group of well appreciated Browne Fund installations around the city. So thank you for all that work. I want to let Councilor Flaherty and Councilor Flynn, if there was anything else that they wanted to comment on, speak, and then I'll go to you guys if there's any last comments you wanted to offer before we throw it open to any public testimony. And just a quick reminder, if you're watching at home, email shane.pac@boston.gov. That's shane.pac@boston.gov if you'd still like to come and join us on Zoom and testify. Or you can sign up in the corner over here. Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, just a note of congratulations to all of the groups that will be receiving an award from their request. And then just a final comment on obviously work that Maureen does, and specifically Margaret. It's a very thoughtful, very thorough, and very professional process. And obviously residents and recipients should be proud. In particular, Edward Ingersoll Browne, I think, would be proud of the thoughtfulness, the care, and the appreciation that goes into the work that Margaret does. So we're blessed to have her working on this capacity, and look forward to partnering with her and the Browne Fund moving forward, as well as any way we can collaborate with CPA to the betterment of our city, its residents. Please consider me an ally in that front, and let us know what we as a council can do to help you. So once again, just thank you, and congratulations. Great work on this one. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. President Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, thank you for your important leadership, Madam Chair. And just wanted to echo what you highlighted, Councilor Bach, on the Coconut Grove. I think you said it perfectly, and the only thing I wanted to add is the wonderful committee that's part of this, that really brought people and brought a city together during that terrible time. And so many advances came out of the Coconut Grove fire, such as how we treat burn patients, how ambulance and respond to an emergency situation, about fire codes and electrical codes. Certainly, I know improve the way we fight fires as well, and want to say thank you. And I know you highlighted it as well, Council Bach. I want to say thank you to the national president of the International Association of Firefighters, Edward Kelly, but also to Local 718, who really support this project as well. And I know Michael Flaherty just left too, but when Michael's father was a state legislator, he practically dedicated his life as a legislator to improving the conditions for firefighters in Boston, but also across the country. And a lot of those lessons we learned right here from that terrible fire at Coconut Grove. So again, just want to say thank you to you, Councilor Bach, and to the wonderful and dedicated city employees that we have that do a tremendous job. And I'm so proud of our city employees, of how professional and dedicated they are to their job, and honored to be with everybody this morning. Thank you, Council Bach.
Thank you, President Flynn. Maureen, Margaret, do you guys have any concluding comments?
I'll just jump in by saying thank you for having us here today. We look forward to getting these funds out to these very worthy recipients. Some of them, as Margaret pointed out, have waited quite a long time, as we didn't have any distributions last year. So,
Thank you.
Great. Yes. No. And I mean, if it wasn't clear already, definitely plan on proposing approval by the council of this docket on Wednesday at our next council meeting. So hopefully we will have that approval to you by the end of the day on Wednesday, and you'll be able to get those checks out ASAP. Before we go to public testimony, I just want to read into the record an absence letter from one of my colleagues who wasn't able to be here with us today, dated February 6th, to myself, from Councillor Ruth C. Louis-Jen at large. Absence for hearing on docket 0211. Dear Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology, I regret to inform you that I will be unable to attend the Committee on City Services and Innovation hearings on docket 0211, a hearing regarding an appropriation order from Her Honor the Mayor for $1,475,000 towards the projects awarded by the Edward Ingersoll Browne Fund. I applaud the noble mission of the Browne Fund and its mission of adornment by the erection of statues, monuments, fountains for the ornament of its streets, ways, squares, and parks in such manner as will promote the pleasure, comfort, education, patriotism, and good taste of its citizens. Specifically, I want to highlight funding for the Frederick Douglass Sculpture Memorial on Tremont Street in Roxbury as a wonderful and worthwhile project that will bring joy to the residents of Roxbury and beyond. Furthermore, I appreciate locating and supporting this project and future projects equitably throughout the city. My staff will be attending, and I will thoroughly review the video, hearing minutes, and public testimony. Should you or any member of the public have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office directly at 617-635-4376 or at ruthc.louisjen@boston.gov. Sincerely, Ruth C. Louis-Jen, Boston City Councilor at Large. So we thank Councilor Louis-Jen for sending that in. And with that, I will just check on whether we have any public testimony. As I mentioned, we got several dozen letters in, so thank you to everyone who wrote in, and please feel free to continue to write in if you want. As I said, I'm planning to propose that this be approved at this Wednesday's council meeting, so ideally get your testimony in before then. Shane, do we have any? Okay, and you've checked the sheets, right? Yeah.
She works with us.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So in that case, I think that we've covered all of our bases here. Thank you again to the Treasury Department. And with that, this hearing of the Boston City Council's Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology is adjourned. Thank you.